Hello, thanks for joining me on this vlog. I'll be presenting on preparing for academic interviews. What I'll be doing is giving tips for early career academics on how to prepare for interviews. The topics that will be covered in this session include preparing for academic interview. What are those things that you need to know? And then I have at least 22 sample interview questions that are usually asked at academic interviews and which you can use to practice. What I would say is that when you come to practicing, you can pause the video at that point and then attempt to provide an answer to the question and look at how I make suggestions on how to answer those questions. The rule number one with regards to academic interviews is that you need to study the person's specification for the role. It's important that you study the person's specification as well as the job description, because it will be very useful if you know what the job description is and what the department requires in terms of who they want to employ. That will help you in preparing for the interview, and during the interview proper, as you will be giving questions, you'll be answering questions that relate to what the job description is and what the person's specification for the role is. Now, there are loads of expert advice that you can find online. For example, at www.jobs.ac.uk regarding career advice in preparing for interviews. What I am doing, or what this vlog is all about, is to give you tips from the point of view of someone who is coming fresh from interviews, point of view from early career academic, just like yourself, someone who just is fresh from coming up from a series of interviews. So what I'll be doing is complementing the expert advice that you would have received or the expert videos that you would have watched regarding academic interviews. Now, I'd like to say congratulations for getting to this stage. To be shortlisted for an interview, that means your application is brilliant. If you are shortlisted for an interview, that's you are potentially you're a potential candidate. You're someone that the department has seen as someone who they can work with, or someone who is close to getting the job. So I must say congratulations for getting to this stage. Like I said earlier, what I'll be doing in this vlog is to talk or offer perspective from the standpoint of an early career academic. I'll be sharing what I've learned from my experience while preparing for academic interview. Now, there are some things that I know now which I wish I had known before now. So these are things I like to share with you so you can have success when you attend academic interviews. Now, I would like to say that there's need for you to practice, practice, and practice. You can never over practice when it comes to academic interviews. So today I'm going to show you some things that I know and how you can approach those questions correctly so you can get your dream job. Now, question number one. So we begin with the questions. From this period, I'd like you to pay attention to the questions and then look at how to address those academic interview questions. Question number one, this is a sure one. Every academic interview that you attend, you will be asked this question. Why this post? Why this university? It's a question that begins the interview. According to the experts, they say that this question is normally asked so as to have everyone settled, to have the candidates especially to be settled before the interview will proceed. And I have been asked this question severally in the many academic interviews that I attended before I got my role as a lecturer. Now, based on the feedback I received from the series of interviews I've attended in the past, based on the feedback, I had always scored very well on this point, and based on feedback, when I get the feedback from the chair of the panel with regards to my performance, they normally say you did well with regards to that question. So this is one area where I think I have developed an expertise in terms of responding to it. So the tip here is that before you go for that interview, make sure you research the school, research the department, and look at the job description as well as the person specification for the role. It's important because these are that's where you get the information which you need to respond to this question correctly. Now, talk about the achievement and reputation of the school. That is very important. For example, if you are interviewing at University X and you know the university has got a good status for in the teaching excellence framework for teaching, then you can say the reason why I want to join this university is because I was looking forward to joining a university where teaching practice or teaching and learning is prioritized and students receive adequate pastoral care. This is evidenced by this university's gold award in the teaching excellence framework. So you can start with that. You can talk about the other awards that the school has won. You can talk about the school's reputation. For example, you can say in the last research REF, this school, it was regarded that 76% or 80% or 90% of the research that is conducted in this university is regarded as award leading or internationally excellent. So that's another thing you can say. You can mention that you are interested in a research unit in the school, or that you're interested in something. Just that the answer or the response that you give is going to be based on the research that you have conducted or what you have found out from the website of the department as well as the website of the school. So you need to do your research. It is important for you to do research so you can answer this first question, which is always a short question at every academic interview. Now, it's important that you link your answer with the job description and person specification. So for every lecturer role, you know, it's important for you to deliver good teaching. Most times we've talked about student-centered teaching. So you need to link this and say it aligns with your philosophy for centered teaching and student-centered teaching, because you feel that students should own ownership in the learning process, and this and that and so on are the kind of activities or the kind of innovations that you have in terms of teaching. So this helps you to link your answer with the job description or the person and the person specification. If the role is for a research role, you can talk about your research methodology, how it aligns with the kind of research that is going on in the school, the kind of research that goes on in the centers and so on. And finally, remember to add or to say that you will be a good fit because you have the skills and you'll be a good fit for the role, and it's an opportunity for you to develop your career. So, and make sure that the answers that you give should be in a structured form. So you begin by saying, I have at least 5 reasons why I want to join this university. The first reason is that, and then you say the second reason is that, and then say in conclusion. So it's good to give a structured answer to this very first question. Now, with regards to question number 2, it is what modules can you teach? Question number 2, what modules can you teach? What modules can you teach? That is question number 2. So now it's important also that you check the department's website and the modules that you know that the school offers. You can also look at the school if you have access to, let's say you have access to prospectus for both the undergraduate or the postgraduate taught class. classes in the department, you can request that online from the school's website. You can download it and look at it, or look at the modules that are taught, and then you look at which modules you can teach, or which they offer. So you can note the modules you may want to teach and use their exact names. It's important that you use the exact names the way it is used in the department on their website. You know, for some schools, maybe it's law of contract, maybe uh, referred to in that school as the law of transactions, for example. So use the correct names and use, show that you have done your research. Show that you have done your research. And then don't forget to add that you are flexible and that you're a fast learner. You know, departments or schools are looking for colleagues who are flexible, colleagues who they can work with. You know, sometimes the department may have a need that may be different from their initial need at the time that that you were employed, or the time you were seeking employment. So it is good, it's always important that in such circumstance that they get someone who is flexible and a fast learner. So don't forget to add that you are flexible and that you are a fast learner. That will help you in putting a good impression to the panel. Now, question number 3. Would you teach other modules besides those advertised? Now it's important that you note that schools are more interested in, like I said previously, while talking about the second question here, that schools are more interested in colleagues who are flexible. So flexibility is key in this respect. Now it's important that your answer to this question will show that you can adapt easily, will show that if the school has a need in one area, that you can cover that need. So for example, this is what I would say if I were to answer: would you teach other modules besides those that have been advertised? I would say I'm a fast learner. I can adapt easily. I have a background, for example, in commercial law, but I currently teach public law and criminal law. That shows that I am flexible and that I can easily adapt to areas, or to cover areas where the school has got needs. This is the next question. The question is, tell us about your research plan for funding for 3 years. Tell us about your research plan for funding for 3 years. Now, this is the way you go about answering this question is to prepare, for example, a one-page research plan that you can always refer to, a one-page research plan that you can commit to memory, or you will just know. You may not have to commit it to memory, but just have a one-page research plan for yourself that you can always refer to, and when you are called upon to talk about it at any time, you will be comfortable talking about that research. So the very first thing you should do when responding to a question such as this is to mention your research interest. Mention your research interest and talk about your research achievements. For example, you could say, I have interest in human rights, in environmental law, and in the law of contract. I have published at least 7 journal articles, 1 book chapter, and I currently have a manuscript with a publisher, a revised version of my thesis, which is going to be published as a monograph. So that shows that you have gotten some research achievements. If you have received grants in the past, you can mention the grant I won, and so of XY number of grants in XY year, and I am sure that I'm able to attract further research grants. I'm looking forward to applying to so and so. It's maybe you can say the United UKRI for research funding in terms of the research that I do, which is related to XY field. Now, you need to mention your research plan and say, for example, in the next 3 years, this is what I intend to do. My research plan has been structured into 2 halves for every year. The first 6 months, I'll be doing literature review, and the second 6 months, I'll be submitting 1 article for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. the next 6 months, which is the second year, I'm looking at presenting a paper at a conference, and the next 6 months, I'm looking at submitting another application for funding, and so on and so forth. So you need to have your plans well structured, then mention the funding body that you will be applying to. So that shows that you've got a plan. The next question, which is number 5, is what will you do to improve the rating of our school? Now, this question can come in different forms. They could say to you, our school is rated, we have a gold award in terms of teaching from the Teaching Excellence Framework. Now, how would you ensure that this is maintained? Or you might be asked, you've got survey from the students which shows that there's poor satisfaction with regards to a module, or just the question here is trying to ask about how you can help improve on and enhance on the experience, student experience at the school or at the department. So the tip I will give here is that you should think about innovations or innovative practices that you can bring to enhance the learning experience in the department. Now, it's important that you mention about how, if you look at students as customers, because students would, at the end of the day, fill in surveys to talk about their experience, how they are satisfied or dissatisfied with the way the modules or the way modules are taught in that department. So the way to get students to appreciate or to be satisfied or to enhance their experience is, for example, giving them good pastoral care. Pastoral care in this sense is that you are there to respond to the needs of the students. For example, you give the students feedback when they submit work. There's constructive feedback or positive feedback after their work has been submitted. Another example is that you respond to emails from students. You maintain an open door policy. Apart from the usual standard office hours, you make opportunities for students to get in contact with you. For example, students can reach you through chats on the virtual learning environment. Students can reach you on the discussion board on the virtual learning environment, and students can send you emails. And you aim to reply to emails within 24 hours or within 48 hours to show that you you make students a priority in your teaching or in your assignment at the department. So pastoral care is one of those areas where universities or departments are keen about having colleagues who would prioritize student learning. So that is important. Talk about how you provide constructive feedback, how you will support in administration. You will be there for open day events, evening, and then you give examples to how you have done that in the past, how you have been a member of a committee, how you have done some roles that would, how you have offered suggestions which would help improve on teaching and learning where you were working before, or as a graduate teaching assistant or as a tutor in the university or place where you did your PhD. So these are very useful clues that you can use to answer the question with regards to improving on the rating of the school. Now, always remember that you need to refer to the person specification. The person specification will give you clues on what the department is looking for in terms of the role. The person specification will tell you this is what they want in terms of collegiality, in terms of pastoral care, and all that. So give back what you are giving in terms of the skills and what they are looking for from the person specification for the role that you've applied for. Now, we go to the next question, which talks about how do you teach a large class? How do you teach a large class? Now, this question sometimes can come in another form to say, oh, there were 25 students in the class in XY year, but in the next year, academic session, there are going to be 80 students in the class. Now, how do you go about teaching a large class? Now, in this case, you need to talk about your teaching strategies and how you can engage large groups. Now, for example, you can state that you include group activities, and you should note this, that the one-size-fits-all strategy may not work for large groups. So all the students may not be learning at the same pace. So there will be those who are fast learners, there will be those who will catch up later, and there will be others who will catch up much later. So you need to talk about a strategy for helping all the students to catch up, or helping the students to learn. So you can talk about group activities, how you're going to structure teaching and learning. Maybe the first, if you have a 2-hour session, the first 1 hour you will use it for a lecture, and the second hour you can use it for more engaging activities. Maybe you will have peer reviews, student group into 2 to discuss issues and then review what the answers. You can talk about introducing problem solving tasks. You can give the students real life problems, and then ask them to apply what they have learned during the lecture session, applying it to those real life situations, and then providing solutions. So that could be one of the strategies that you can use in this sense. Now, you can also use bookend approach. That means you can state the goals for the class, use a statement to spark curiosity. Now, how you will transit between lecture and activity, and how you end with a reflection. Then you can talk also about how you can use technology to enhance learning. Like perhaps you would want to show some videos, 2 minutes, 3 minutes videos at intervals to stimulate student thought mind, how you could use creative questions that would arouse curiosity, or questions that will make the students to think critically, and so on. So these are things that strategies you can adopt for a large class, and to ensure that you engage the students. So this is just an example. You may have another strategy, but I'm just trying here to give an example of a strategy that you can use to answer that question: how do you teach a large class? Question number 7 here is, how do you deliver teaching in a seminar setting? How do you deliver teaching in a seminar setting? Now, if I were to answer this question, I would say, for example, I present myself as a learning advisor and facilitator. My aim is to guide the students and to facilitate critical thinking. So I frame questions that will make the students think. I encourage the students to give responses using their backgrounds. And when students give answers using their backgrounds, this will help for students to understand other cultures. It helps for students to understand what happens in other places. There are students from different backgrounds. There are some who are first generation undergraduates in their families, and so on. So an opportunity for students to speak and give examples based on their backgrounds and their culture. It's very exciting in the classroom environment. So you can say that. You can say, I present real life problems in form of portfolios for the students to provide solutions. So their learning is based on problem solving, and students are divided into groups. They present papers. They appoint someone to speak on behalf of the group after the group has deliberated on those questions. The groups are named as law firms. So from the point of learning, students are beginning to develop employability skills such as presentation skills, problem solving skills, team building skills, and so on. Now, students, when they get involved in sort of activities, you can have them role play or have them simulate clients and so on. So that gives the students excitement and encourage learning. So it's not just about, it's not just the traditional lecturer teaching in front of the students, but you have students also taking part ownership of the learning process and then being engaged. So we'll move on now to question number 8. Question number 8 is, sorry, take it back to question number 8 is, tell us about an incident where you motivated a student. Now, this is a behavioral question. Now, in interviews, behavioral questions should be answered or are better answered using the STAR technique. Now, STAR is an acronym for situation. S stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for result. So you use the STAR technique to answer this question. Tell us about an incident where you motivated a student. For example, I had a student in one of the classes that I taught who felt out of place because he was a matured student and felt that he was much older than every other person in the class. And he wanted to withdraw. I noticed that he was not engaging in studies as much as he could. What I did was that I sent an email to the student and requested for a meeting. That was the task. Now, the student came to my office and I inquired what the problem was or why the student was not engaging with his studies. And the student explained to me that he was feeling out of place in the class. Now, what action did I do? I now counseled with the student and talked about the benefits. I said to the student, if you think that by the time you get this degree, you're going to be 45, and now because you are 42 and you're thinking you'll be 45 and there's no point for you to continue with this, I said to him that whether you attend this class or not, 3 years time you're going to be 45, and if you attend and continue with engage with your studies when you are 45, you will earn a degree. But if you stop, 3 years time you will still be 45, and at 45 you won't have a degree. Now the student was impressed by this counsel that I gave. The result was the student now started engaging and it's doing well in class. So this is an example of how I motivated students. So question number 9, how would you handle disruptive student behavior? This is also a behavioral question. So it requires the STAR technique that I talked about earlier. So what you need to do is to talk about how you will go about it, and then you give examples. Now, for example, I would say when a student is disruptive in class, I will be professional about it. I would, for example, give the student a stare to show that I want the students to behave. If that did not work, that doesn't work, I will keep quiet. And most times when you keep quiet in class, peer pressure comes on the student and the student keeps quiet. And then I will say next, I invited the student to my office and then we had a chat. And after that period, the students changed in attitude. There was no more disruptive behavior in the class. So this is an example of how you can talk about how you handle disruptive student behavior. You need to think about it, how you would answer these questions, because questions such as this are frequent in academic interviews. Now, question number 10, who can you collaborate with in the department? Who can you collaborate with in the department? Who can you collaborate with in the department? Now, like I said in the earlier slides that we look at, you need to do your research. You need to do your research. It's important that you do your research. Check the department staff pages. It's important that you check the department staff pages. Sometimes it is called people page, people, our people. Sometimes it's called staff. Sometimes it's called researchers and so on. So check, note colleagues that you can work with. Note colleagues that you can work with, those who research aligns with yours or the research is similar to yours. And I have been asked in an interview about who would you work with outside the department, because in our university, we are we structured into colleges so that we can have interdisciplinary research. So who can you work with in our college? Now that school, it was a law school that was in a College of Social Sciences, Management and Law. Now, what you should do is that note where the department that you are in and the college or faculty that is under, and also research one or two names that you should readily make available if you are asked this question. So it's important that you know this. Note this. Note one or two persons you can collaborate with in the department, and also know one or two persons you can also collaborate with in the faculty or college. And this can only happen, you can only know this if you have done proper research. Look at the department's website, look at the school's website, or the faculty or college, so you can be prepared for this question. Question number 11 is, where do you see your research fitting in with the interests of the department? Question number 11, where do you see your research fitting in with the interests of this department? So it also requires you to do your research, look up the department's website, and see where you can fit in. One of the key things to look at for our research units or research centers within that department. Now look at which center you fit in. It can be, if you're a law teacher or a law researcher, it might be human rights, it might be environmental law. Just look at what they have and then determine where you fit in. And when answering, begin with your interest, research interest. For example, you can say, I have interest in human rights, international human rights. I'll be glad to join the Human Rights and Justice Center. My work aligns with what goes on there. Especially, I've noted the work of Professor XYZ in terms of international human rights. That aligns with the work I am doing. I'll be happy to be mentored by him. If I am successful in the role, I will approach him for guidance in terms of X and Y research that I am doing. So that's how you approach that question. Now, question number 12. What plans do you have for publishing your PhD? What plans do you have for publishing your PhD? Now, the first place you should talk about your PhD. My PhD focused on XYZ. In XYZ place, I found out during my research that this and that happened, and I'm currently working on revising my thesis based on the responses I got from reviewers after I had submitted a proposal to publishers. I have responded to the reviewers, and I have been sent a contract by XY publisher. I have signed a contract, and I'm currently working on submitting a manuscript for the publication as a monograph. So that, for example, that's what you can, how you can respond to that question. Now, question number 12, what does collegiality mean to you? Question number 12, what does collegiality mean to you? Now, the panel is looking for a colleague to work with. The panel is looking for a colleague to work with. So when you are doing the interview, sometimes you note that those who are better qualified than other candidates may not get the job they are applying for after the interview. On paper, they might look better than other candidates applying for the role, but they may not be hired because of attitude, or the panel is observing you to determine whether you can be, whether you are a suitable colleague, whether you can work with others. It's not enough for you to be excellent in other things that you do, but not approachable, not flexible, not cordial, not a team player. That would affect negatively on the department. So they are looking for someone who they can work with. They are looking for a team player. They are looking for someone who can help the team achieve their goals. They are looking for someone who is flexible, because the department can have needs in other areas, so that you can fill those areas of needs. They are looking for someone who can cover for a colleague who is indisposed or who is sick. They are looking for someone who can be useful, who can enhance the activities in the department, someone who can also do admin work, not just teaching and learning, someone who is ready to work as, for example, an admissions tutor, or members of review committees, or working during open days or open evening and so on and so forth. So they are looking for people who can be team players. Then you need to give examples as well and say, for example, at XYZ University, I did this, and this was what I did, and my contribution to the team at that university. So this is important. So we move on to question number 13. Question number 13. What is your teaching philosophy? What is your teaching philosophy? Now, with regards to this question, I would say that there is no right or wrong answer here. It depends on what your teaching philosophy is, but you need to show that you understand what student-centered teaching is all about, because that is key. Every university is talking about prioritizing teaching these days, so you need to show that you know what pedagogy is and what best form of pedagogy will help in terms of students learning, in terms of engaging students, in terms of having students become part owners of the learning process. Now you would need to talk about your approach, in terms of teaching and learning, and then give examples of what happens when you teach. What can we see when we attend your class? What are your students doing? Are they thinking critically? Are they providing answers to problem scenarios? Are they solving problems? Are they developing employability skills? What are your students doing, or what does your teaching philosophy help the students to achieve? So that is important as well. So we go on now to question number 14. Question number 14. If I come into your classroom, what will I see? What do you do that is particularly effective? What did you do that is particularly effective? Now, a wrong answer is to say I teach, I lecture for 8 weeks, and then I give a test. That's a wrong answer. The answer here is related to the question that we talked about in question number 13. So you need to show what your teaching philosophy is, how you engage your students, how students benefit from your teaching, and so on and so forth. So that's what will be seen when I come into your classroom. I want to see how you deliver effective teaching. So you look at the answers we gave for the response to question number 13. That will also fit into question number 14. Now, question number 15. Question number 15 is, what strengths do you bring to the university? What strengths do you bring to the university? Now, the tip I will give here is that you should refer to the person specification for the role, especially the skills. That is what they are looking for, and that's why you have been interviewed. You have written your application, you have been shortlisted for interview, and now you are here to tell them about what you would give or bring to the university or to the department if you're successful at the interview. Now, talk about collegiality, which of course would be in the job specification, person specification. Talk about pastoral care, things about excellent communication skills, your flexibility, your administrative skills that you offer, innovative teaching practice, and so on. Just refer, like I said, rule number 1 for academic interviews, the job specification and job description is your main reference point for every academic interview. So do that, it's important. So we'll move now to question number 16. Question number 16 says, what modules have you taught before? What modules have you taught before? Now, in this case, the tip I will give you is that what matters is your enthusiasm for teaching and you being well prepared. So give examples of modules that you have taught and show some excitement when you are giving the answer. Don't forget to mention that you are a fast learner and that you are flexible to cover other areas where the department will have need. That is very important because they're looking for a colleague who is a team player and who is flexible and can teach across a range of modules that they have. Now, question number 17, what is your biggest weakness? What is your biggest weakness? Now, it's not true that you don't have a weakness. So it's important for you to appear truthful and honest to the panel and give a weakness. Now, the tip here I will give you is that make sure you give a tip, a weakness that is outside the person's specification or job description. Give a weakness that is outside. For example, I would say, I have been criticized in the past for my inability to say no to people. I am usually the first person to volunteer to do additional tasks, and I sometimes get overloaded with work. So you need to give an example like that, because they are looking for someone who would work. The department is looking for someone who will be committed. So you can give this as a weakness, or any other weakness that you know that will not affect your suitability for the role. You cannot give a weakness with regards to any of the skills they are looking for. For example, you say, I have a problem communicating in English, or I have a problem with written work, or I have a problem with pastoral care, or I have a problem speaking with people, or I have a problem interacting with people. That means you do not have those interpersonality skills, and that will stop you from being hired. So use a problem that is outside what they are looking for. So outside the scope of the skill sets that they want for that role. Question number 18. Question number 18. Now, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Now, this question can be asked differently. In 5 years or 10 years' time, where do you see yourself? Now, the tip I will give to you, this tip would help you to buttress the answers that you will give for when you ask a question similar to this one, or a question such as this. Say that you will still be working for the university. Now, the panel do not want to sit down again just shortly after interviewing you and then start interviewing someone else for the role. So show that you are going to still be there. Now, you can say, I expect to be competent in the role and well respected by my work colleagues, supervisors, and peers. I would also be willing to help train up others in similar roles here at the University of XYZ, due to the length of time I would have been on the position and the experience I would have gained. So use an example. For some, don't go saying, oh, in 5 years' time, I want to be a professor and all that. It's good to have good ambitions, but the reason why this question is asked is so that the panel can determine whether you will be someone that would be hired and that you will be there for the long term. Now, you know, academics are always moving. Some universities or departments have cases of academics always on the move, and that affects teaching and learning, affects research, it affects student supervision. For example, you can have someone who is studying for a PhD and having to have new supervisors every year because staff keep moving. So the university might have a policy that terms this employment round, whoever that is being employed is going to be there for the long term. So you need to give an answer which shows that you're going to be there for a long term. Now, question number 19. How do you handle pressure? How do you handle pressure? Now, I understand that you can use this as an answer tip. I understand that pressure is a part of academic life, and I actually perform well under pressure. For example, what I do is that I prioritize my work. I ensure that I draw up the priority list of priority tasks and the deadlines that I need to complete those tasks. Then what I do after that is that I work solidly to put in extra hours to get the tasks done within the time frame set and within the deadline that I have. So you can use that to answer question. I recall in an interview I was asked a question. You know, in our university we have a lot of teaching to be done. What do you do when you have a lot of work to do, and what do you do when there is not much work to be done? I responded at the interview and I said, what I do is that I will prioritize. When I have so much work, I will do them according to the order of priority. I will do the most important tasks that needs to be done. And when I have less work to be done, what I do is that I will prepare ahead because I'm planned ahead, because I know in the future there will be much pressure. That's how I will handle. I will use the same technique of prioritizing work to handle the job that I will have, or the workload that I will have in the future. So that can be helpful and can serve as a guide. Question number 20, why should we hire you? why should we hire you? Now, a sample answer I would like to give you here is that you can say, I have read the job description and the person's specification in detail, and I strongly believe that I have the necessary skills, qualities, and attributes to carry out the role of lecturer in your department to a very high standard. If you hire me, I will work hard to fit into the team so I can start contributing positively in a very quick time scale. That's a good way to respond to that answer. It's a good way to respond. You can give examples of some of the things that you skills that you have, which you know is fit. Don't go saying that I am better than the other candidates and so on. You need to make a bold statement such as this, and then say you have what they are looking for. You have the skills that they want, and then you can mention some of the requirements that you know is on the job description. Question number 21. Now, what is your greatest achievement to date? What is your greatest achievement to date? Now, the tip I'll give you is that give an achievement that is relevant to the role. Now, I recall the first interview that I attended, I was asked this question, but because I didn't know how to respond to it, I gave an example of an achievement I achieved as a student, but not as a teacher. Now, in that interview, they wanted to hire a lecturer, but I was giving an example of myself as a student. So that was not the appropriate answer. So I'll advise you, if you have a similar question as this, give an achievement that is relevant to the role. For example, you can say, when I first started teaching at University X, I had a cohort of students studying X module. The students were not very responsive. I devised techniques to deliver student-centered teaching, learning. My techniques stirred up interest in the module as I introduced class activities such as role plays and simulation. By the end of the year, the students achieved good grades, and I received excellent feedback from the students as well as in the service for the module. That word there is excellent, and the other word it's as well as service for the module. Thank you. Question number 22, and the last question. How do you see advances in technology impacting on your role as lecturer? How do you see advances in technology impacting on your role as lecturer? Here you need to talk about how technology can impact on teaching and learning, the impact of technology in the use of virtual learning environment. You can use example of the transition from this period in the COVID-19 pandemic, where school transited from face-to-face learning to online learning or blended learning, and how we have used technology to enhance your role as a teacher. So that would suffice in terms of this question. Now, the panel will always ask you this, just as they will ask, why do you want to join the department? Why do you want to join us? They will end the interview with, do you have any question for us? Now, the tip, asking a question shows that you are really interested in the role. Make sure you don't ask a question that the answer for which you know it's readily available on the department's website. If you ask a question that is available on the website, it shows that you didn't do your research. So you need to do your research and ask questions that you know it's relevant, and don't ask a question for question's sake because you're asked to ask a question. Now, don't ask about salary or travel money. If I were the one to ask a question, I will ask about orientation for new staff. If I know that that is not on the website, I will ask for how the school supports new staff if I know that that is not on the website, and things that I know that cannot be easily seen. So that will be the question that I will ask. Now, for final points to note, during the interview, the professorial acts like a colleague, act with the dignity that the role deserves. You're going there to meet your future colleagues. Whether you get the role or not, they are still going to be your colleagues. There are people who would review your work, you will review theirs. You're going to meet them in in conferences and so on. So they are going to be your colleagues for life, whether you get the role or you don't get it. So it's important that you talk to them, chat with them up like colleagues. Focus on your strengths when you give responses to the answers. Focus on your strengths. And finally, practice, practice, practice. You can never practice enough for an academic interview. I hope this will help you. And if you have any comments, please add to down and subscribe to my YouTube page. Thank you.